Hello, everyone. Our special guest today is Doug Morrow. He's a master makeup effects artist, and his work spans major TV shows and blockbuster films. And we go with him behind the scenes on how he helps bring these characters to life with practical movie magic. Enjoy. I wanted to go into the subject, especially with makeup, in particular with the focus on storytelling. Because if you take something like you worked on Violent Night, for example, or Nobody, and there's things going on to, let's say, the main character throughout the whole thing. Sometimes we're supposed to be laughing, sometimes we're supposed to be like, oh my gosh, that looks like it really hurts. From your approach, as far as the makeup for the storytelling goes, how you approach a character throughout a movie or TV show.
I mean, a lot of the approach to how a character is going to look, obviously comes from meetings with the director and producer and such. But I remember when I was quite young being in my early 20s, I read an article about the makeup artist who had done Fatal Attraction. That's the Michael Douglas and Glenn Close one, right? And I remember I'd seen the movie and I had read this thing where the makeup artist intentionally made her face look somewhat crooked, I guess is appropriate word. He did things to just make her look a little bit off kilter, which of course fits with her mindset, right? And I was really fascinated by that even just small little things, because then I went back and watched it again, and it's like there was something that wasn't quite right about how she looked. And it was really subtle, but it was totally different from, other things that I'd seen Glenn Close in. I worked on a movie many years ago called Hideaway with Jeff Goldblum. And I was really fortunate to get on it. And I was working with my mentor, who's a very well-known makeup artist named Todd McIntosh. Jeremy Sisto plays the bad guy, and Todd did his makeup, and he kind of made him have this kind of jaundiced, light jaundiced kind of skin tone, because he's the bad guy and kind of unsettling to look at. But one day I noticed he was doing things that seemed like he wasn't just putting foundation on him. So I asked him about it. He made it almost look like he had like a muzzle, and it was very, very subtle. And he intensified just up here a bit. So he had this kind of feline, kind of angry look, but it was obviously super, super, super subtle. And I was like, wow, that's really, I never really had thought about makeup in terms of doing things like that. And I've always remembered those two movies as to when I'm reading a script and I have to do something like that to an actor, and what maybe I could do to imbue the look to coincide with the character. I found even little touches like that are incredibly fascinating, and on a subliminal level probably work. You just don't realize it. It's something that I think about constantly when I'm doing those kinds of movies, when I'm, department heading and all that.
I mean, yeah, because there's so much more that goes into it than he got hit in the face, put some bruising and cut makeup, and there's so much more that goes into the intricacies of the character and the story. Are we putting a big gash on the face versus not? Are we adding just a little blemish here? And what's that like as the scene goes on? Is it healing? Is it festering? There's so much that goes into it. What is that collaboration process like for you? I mean, there's so many ins and outs of people collaborating within a TV show and film. Obviously, you have your notes going into it. You're listening to what they're wanting out of it. But I would imagine it's not just, all right, what do you want? Because that can mean anything coming out of somebody's mouth, So what is that process like?
It's different each time. Sometimes they'll just say, I just want everybody to look natural and, not a lot of makeup or whatever, right? And sometimes, again, depending on the project, like when I did The Long Walk, so we had to take these actors who were supposed to be young, fresh-faced guys, and the Francis Lawrence, the director, specific enough in that he wanted them by the end of the movie who made it to the end to look like they had been through hell. we had a little meeting, and that was basically kind of the brief that I got. So what I did was I got my key makeup artist who's working with me. She came over here, and I just did about 12 to 15 different looks from 0 to 1,000, and photographed them all, and did little kind of, just some of them were slightly more touched up, or maybe a little more snot coming out of somebody's nose or whatever. And I used little prosthetic transfer eye bags for the last couple of stages, and lips to make them look like been out in the sun and stuff, and their eyes kind of swollen and puffy from no sleep, and lots of, shading and paint and grime and stuff. And basically, I was trying to make them look like they were really humanized zombies from like The Walking Dead, which was
interesting. Okay.
He kind of said, like really almost zombified kind of look, but we're not supposed to be scared of them. We're supposed to realize how difficult this is for them to get through.
And I think that's what that makes it a true collaborative effort. It's not just one person. It's a team of artists and visionaries putting that together, and then you get something interesting like that, better than you would by yourself. So,
yeah, but I mean, sometimes they're just like, what do you think? Just do something and we'll see, right? And then, yeah. But other times they can be very specific. I did a movie, I can't remember the title of it, many, many years ago, and I was just doing a few makeup effects, but Brendan Fair was in it, and he plays this really nasty guy, and at the end, he meets his demise. I can't remember, I think he's attacked by wolves or something. It was like a period thing from the late 1800s, early 1900s. Even though he's killed and kind of devoured, I guess, by these wolves, you weren't supposed to feel bad. You were supposed to feel kind of like this guy got his. And so I took that and I really made him look like he was shredded as much as you can doing a prosthetic makeup on an actor. Again, taking the cue from his character that this guy should look like he's really messed up really, really badly, but we don't feel bad for him. So,
okay.
Yeah. But every experience is different, because sometimes I've worked with DPs and I've talked to them if I'm doing a beauty makeup, and I'll talk to them about, the lighting, or is this working for you? And some of them are like, yeah, we could do this, and we could, and do you need anything from me? And other times I try to have a meeting with a DP and they'll go, you just do what you do. I don't know what you do. Just do it.
There's a reason you're here.
And I'll try and help you with what I do.
I love that. Because it is. As a director, like, I casted you for a reason as an actor, or I got you as a DP for a reason, and you kind of collaborate, but they're there for a reason. They do their end of the work. Last time I had you on, you did. We talked about a really amazing age makeup you did. So, like, let's say, for example, age makeup. What's a mindset that goes into something like that, and at the same time, not making it look like, okay, we're putting on age makeup, because it looked very realistic. You show me even like skin textures and like little like a birthmark, and what kind of thought process goes into that?
It's kind of the same thing if you're developing a character and you want, if it's like an age makeup on a woman, do we want her to have like a friendly disposition depending on a character, or if not, because that can sometimes result in how you're creating the look, and maybe you might make her look a little more wrinkly around the eyes or something, as opposed to maybe if she's supposed to be quite friendly, but a lot of it depends on the actor's face and things like that. Yes, yeah. And also a lot of it depends on what is their environment that they're living in or growing up,
Right.
Do they have money? Do they not? Do they work outside? All these things you kind of have to think about and have a chat about in terms of something like an age makeup. Definitely. Yeah. How wrinkly do you want to be? I usually, when I'm creating age makeups, I don't like to put in a ton of wrinkles, because not everybody gets super wrinkly, and I go more for like changing the structure of the face, which is more important to me than putting in like a million wrinkles. As long as you have the right wrinkles, like crow's feet and eye bags and and all that hopefully lends itself to the aging. And as well, it's the actor's face. So
Right.
I got called in emergency a few years ago to do an aging makeup for a Netflix series called Painkiller. They needed an aging makeup on Clark Gregg. And I basically had 11 days to do this. I'm not sure how old he is. I think at the time he was about 55. And I had to make him look like he was early 80s. So I didn't get a chance to meet him before or anything. I just had pictures. So I built like a whole, like forehead and eyelids and everything, eye bags. And the makeup worked and everybody was happy with it. But if I had met him first, I would have approached it differently. I would have, I probably would have created like nasolabial jowls and a neck and maybe a forehead, but you would have used old age stipple around his eyes because it would have worked and looked better than sculpting it.
Well, and
So,
that's your canvas too, right? So
correct. Yeah. So sometimes the actor's face will lend itself in better ways than if you create everything artificially. And I always look to the makeup that Dick Smith did on Max von Sydow as Father Merrin in The Exorcist, because he did have prosthetics on, like he had an upper lip and a chin and nasolabial kind of jowl pieces, and he had a little waddle thing, but the rest of it was old age latex stipple. There's people that watch this movie today and they have no clue that was a guy who was 44 years old.
right.
And he looked like he was 75, right? Like you just have no clue. And that's another reason why hopefully you get to do tests,
Yeah.
right? If you have the time and the budget, you get to do a test and then you can go in and change things or whatever. But yeah.
It's interesting too. Like this next question I have kind of goes in the lines of, like I'm a believer as much as you possibly can have it in camera versus doing everything in post. And I think it really comes off, whether it's makeup, prosthetics, so on and so forth, or even action and all that. But I think maybe another thing you and I can add to this conversation now is also AI is a factor. What is that? Like, everybody agrees something is lost in post if you're trying to add the bruise there or the blood spatter there or there's a gouge or whatever that tell that character's story. There's something, no matter how well they do the post editing lighting and things like that. I think it's good having a hybrid for certain things, but in camera it's just better. I mean, come on.
And I think what you're expertly saying is that thing that you don't know what it is you can't touch what they've created digitally, right?
Great point.
We've seen digital blood and you can just tell it's digital blood. And the apes in the new Planet of the Apes movies are fantastic. Like they're incredible. But now I'm saying this because I'm quite discerning, especially about Planet of the Apes.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of your all-time faves, so.
Yeah, as you know, yeah. But I still don't feel like I can touch them. So I've seen tons of stuff, online, AI, but it's too perfect. It looks like the most amazing cartoon in the whole world.
Right.
To me. But there's still that disconnect of that tangible, tactile, I can't touch that. And that is that gauze that you're talking about. There's something quite not right about it. But everybody knows to me, the best thing when we're doing, especially like blood effects and stuff, is doing it practically. And if you have to enhance it, then that's the best marriage of the two forms of what we do. Like we did a lot of stuff like that on The Long Walk. So because Francis Lawrence is very like incredibly organized and he knew exactly how he wanted to do everything, like shooting, setups, makeup effects. And because of that, he works incredibly quickly and he knows exactly what he's doing. And it was just such a joy to work with this man. So what we did was, for a lot of the makeup effects, we built practical stuff and we had an element shoot day where we shot stuff of things like whatever. And then he took those and digitally merged them and it worked great. because that's the best way you should do it. I don't think nowadays you should totally do something all practical or all digital. A lot of directors I work with now are anti-digital. They want to do everything practical, and then if they have to fix something, then they will. I did a movie that came out this year called Normal with Bob
Oh yeah.
Odenkirk.
Yes.
I did all the makeup effects, and Ben Wheatley, this wonderful, lovely director from England, just an awesome man. He comes from the school. He's a huge movie fan like us. He wants to do everything practically, and then he'll just enhance it if he feels it needs enhancing. Or, I did a thing where a guy gets shot, kind of strafes his neck. So I did the old Dick Smith taxi driver thing where I built like a little appliance which had a tube underneath it that I wasn't too concerned about hiding. And then I had a little plastic plate that fit into the wound that was already there with a monofilament on it. And then I just covered it with wax and, on the cue, pull the thing, blood shot out. And then he just went in and just smoothed it a bit and made sure we couldn't see the mono. And it worked great, right? And it was really quick because I could go in, replace the plug, put mortician's wax back over it, and shoot it again. Just clean up the blood a bit, and then he just went in, and just fixed it a little bit.
Old school's the best, man.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
seriously.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah, like you said, it's tactile. It's something you can touch or experience there.
Mhm.
You do pick up on that. Like when the original Star Wars trilogy came out versus the prequels and sequels or whatnot, or even when they revamped up, Lucas redid the originals. There was something. Yeah, no thanks. But there's something
Sorry.
special about having. Yeah, that's what made it kind of special or lightning in the bottle, if you will, because it was real.
Let me tell you, I watched The Empire Strikes Back last week, and that Yoda is the best Yoda.
Oh.
Nothing ever after that came close to being anywhere near as good. And I think in episode 1 it was a puppet and he's younger, but they used silicone and it was great. And it still worked. And they, even when they built the first Yoda, and they weren't technical wizards at that time, one of his eyes was slightly off, and they put that in the puppet, and it worked great. But then they went to digital, and I remember sitting in the theater in episode 3, and they did a close up of him, and it just looked like this, like a painting, a really well done painting of Yoda that was talking, and I just felt and there was that. It was a huge, thick piece of gauze between me and that screen when I was watching Yoda. You just didn't believe it.
Yeah.
But Yoda from Empire Strikes Back was a real, tangible being that you believed was there and existed. And you believed the words that were coming out of his mouth. And that movie was made in 1979.
Isn't it another major factor where you said the imperfections? I mean, nobody has this perfectly symmetrical face, and everybody's got like one eye is maybe like a little more open than the other, and you that's your canvas, right? I mean, could you kind of go into that mentality of, the imperfection is what makes something perfect?
Well, 100%. When I am sculpting things, especially faces, even if they're ones that, like a slit throat or, a wound on a face or whatever, your skin has these imperfections and bumps and dents and stuff. And you don't do it so it's like completely in your face, but you put them in because subliminally you're going to know that it's there. And it makes me think of some of the great paintings by the masters. When they painted faces and things of that like that, they didn't make them perfect, right?
Right.
And I took Dick Smith's advanced professional makeup course in the late 1980s. He talks about when you're sculpting, you shouldn't make things perfect. And he referenced this painting by the artist Cezanne. And it was like these 7 trees that he painted. But each one was, they weren't perfect, right? They were like this and all that. And that's the imperfection of nature. So you have to put that into whatever you're creating to make it look more real.
100%. I mean, that's what makes it feel real. And there's some recent thing because the Mandalorian Grogu movie came out and Jon Favreau was being interviewed, and he had a funny story about in the first season or first episode, the director Werner was on there, and they had the practical Grogu or Baby Yoda, everybody called him at the time, and that's what he was acting with. And they're like, yeah, in post we're gonna digital. He goes, no, don't do that. Don't be a coward. And to this day, one of the first episode throughout the first season, that's what everybody loved Baby Yoda because it's a practical creature that's moving.
That you can relate to right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw. I love to cook, and there was some cooking thing that they had Jon Favreau and Pedro Pascal on. I can't remember who the chef was, and they had Grogu there in a chair, and they were feeding Grogu, and like it was an actual being, and it was the puppet, and you totally bought it, even though it's a little Baby Yoda. It's still crafted so well and puppeteered so well that it's an actual being.
Yeah, I love that. Let me ask you this. I know a lot of people listening to this are filmmakers or aspiring filmmakers of whatever degree. And when someone like a director, I'm coming up to someone like you, what can make a new director, not necessarily common mistakes or pitfalls, but what can make that communication process better and more streamlined for both parties that you could, tips wise give people as far as approaching makeup and the storytelling aspect?
I mean, again, like we were saying, if you have the budget, I mean, trying to shoot everything in camera if we're talking about like prosthetics or creatures or things like that. But also, I've been doing this now for 37 years and having them actually listen to what you're saying. Because they've hired me, they looked at my resume, looked at my website, all that. So they've hired me for my particular expertise. So if you're doing that, listen to what I'm saying about maybe if I suggest that we should do something this way, that it's not just because I want to do it this way, it's because I've maybe done it before and I know maybe this is going to be better or more efficient or more financially fiscal compared to doing it some way else, right?
Right.
But the most important thing is just having open communication. And every makeup artist, especially ones that do prosthetic stuff, will tell you that having a director who knows what they want is the greatest thing in the world.
Yeah.
Because we have all worked with directors who don't know what they want, but they sure as hell know what they don't want.
Okay.
And it makes it.
How do you work with that?
Yeah. And it can make it difficult. So having an open communication and just having like a really good idea of what you're looking for.
Yeah, you don't want someone's like, hey, let's wing this on set. Like, no. I can only imagine. That's like nightmare fuel. Have you ever had a moment yourself where you feel like this is almost impossible to pull off, but we did?
I don't want to give the name of the show or who I was working with.
Okay.
But it was a show that I did, and they wanted a certain makeup effect to happen to this actor, and it was supposed to be scary. And what they wanted to happen to this person, I just knew it wouldn't be scary. And I said, I've seen other movies and TV shows that have done this, and it's really hard to pull off turning a person, sorry, I'm being vague, but I got to be careful.
I know.
Into something like this because it's almost going to be comical. And they wouldn't listen to me.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
So, and there wasn't a lot of time. So we built what they wanted, and we did not have time to test it. Like, we finished crafting all the prosthetics, hair punching stuff like 6 hours before it was going to be on set. Took it to set, put the actor into this, shot it in broad daylight, summertime, outside, and it just didn't work.
Oh no!
I mean, if we had a chance to test it and futz with it,
right,
change the paint, whatever, and shot it in moody lighting, it probably could have worked. But it was just like, this is, this, here it is, and go. And it just didn't work. So got called into the producer the next day with some of the other producers who were kind of in charge and stuff, and basically chewed us out and said, this didn't work. This was an epic failure. And so we need to redo this. And so I went back and I sculpted something really quick about how I thought it should have been done in the first place, and showed it to them the next day, and they went, that's great. And it was smaller things. It was more realistic and more frightening. Crafted the appliances really quickly. We did a test. Everybody liked it. We had to reshoot that one scene on a Saturday. So I, wasn't the greatest, but then it worked. It was just a matter of really not them listening to maybe what I was helping them with in terms of story, and maybe me also, this was several years ago. Now Doug would go, look, this isn't going to work. It's not going to be scary. There's not enough time. So maybe we should do this, and I'll do a quick test so you can get an idea. That's the thing comes with age and experience, right?
Yeah.
Is I'm at that point in my career where I'm not afraid at all to express myself, and I'll do it in a professional way. But I'll just say, I would have said now, I don't think this is a good idea. I don't think it's going to be scary. I think we should do it this way because it's going to cost you less. It's going to take less time for the actor in the chair, and all that.
And it's just an ever learning process, because it's not just learning your craft. Again, this whole thing's a collaborative effort.
Oh yeah.
So it takes dealing with people, different personalities and things like that, the correct way. And also I can say on my end, that's what I feel like I did do well going into my first narrative film, which was, there's a reason why I got this person as the crew and this cast member. I already did the work of prep and all that stuff. We're on set, let them do their thing. That I think that's a very important thing when you're running the show, a producer, director, whatever. You don't want everybody just doing whatever, but hey, let's maybe listen to Doug. He's been in the trenches on this. It's an interesting concept.
And like I say, most directors and producers do. And I worked with Francis Lawrence, who, do all the Hunger Games and I Am Legend. And they hired me, and he just, we had this meeting and said, well, I want them to look like this, and I want there to be 8 stages. So I, want to impress the guy. I went away and did all these things, showed him, said, yeah, that's great. And he understands, right? He's letting me do what they hired me to do. And it was interesting, too, because what was really awesome about that movie was we got to put every single actor through as many of the looks as we could in prep, which never happens, right? So, and I'm not talking about, if you saw the long walk, there was 50 walkers. We put almost every actor through all of their looks. And I was photographing everything and sending it to Francis and his people, because we were doing test stuff before, but once we got the actors. And I wasn't hearing anything for 2 days. I didn't get an email saying, oh, that's great, or nothing. And I was like, oh my God. And then on the 3rd day, I got a message from Francis's assistant, Les Snot.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, so he is basically liking everything that we're doing. If I don't hear anything, it's good.
Oh,
and
okay.
And then I realized, we want to make sure as we're watching these actors on screen that we want to make sure that they're not so disgusting that we can't look at them, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So we really, because they would have stuff and all that, and nobody wants to see that for almost 2 hours, right? So that was, it's another thing is no news is good news.
Put us in your shoes, a TV show versus doing a movie like that versus I only have to worry about one actor versus you had to do all the makeup for all the actors involved. What is that coordination process?
So when I read the script, and of course it was Stephen King book, and then I was working with Francis Lawrence, I really want to do the best job that I possibly could, right? So I went into it, the first few meetings and stuff, I was beyond prepared in terms of kind of having an idea of how we were going to do all this. Because obviously, folks, I didn't do everyone by myself.
Right. Right.
I had help. So my idea was, first of all, we had like 2 weeks of prep and working with the actors, which never happens. Like that's before camera tests and stuff. So I went to the line producer and production manager and I said, listen, we have these 50 actors. We lose a lot of them quickly, but some of them make it to stage 4 and 5 in makeup, which starts to get to be quite a bit in terms of paint and stuff and grime and all that. I said, we should hire 3 full-time background, even though those actors weren't really background, but makeup artists. And they're going to come in, and once we figured out exactly what these 8 stages are, and that's what Francis wants to go with, then we're going to bring them in for 2 days and train them and put them through how you do it and let them do it. And then when we do test day, they're going to be there as well. So that was a huge thing that production is like, we'll spend the money and do that because it's important. They can't be, this isn't like doing a Hallmark where they're showing up doing wedding guests, right?
Right.
So they're really specific looks. And I was really specific about how they were going to look. Like they had to look like this for this stage and this for this stage and this for this stage. Because I really wanted it to sell on screen that these guys were going through hell. So that was something that production was like, yeah, let's do that.
I mean, I kind of almost imagine you like you're like a sous chef, a 5-star sous chef, and you're getting everything. It's because it's so chaotic. It's like, what was that TV show, Hell's Kitchen? It's like, this is crazy.
But it wasn't like that. Oh, here's the other thing, which was, again, never happens. Francis said, we're shooting this movie in chronological order from beginning to end. And he did it mainly for the actors. But I think he also did it for makeup and wardrobe because they get broken down. And the last 3 stages, they have little prosthetics on. And it would be a lot of work because it happens all the time where you're on a show. And in the morning, you might shoot scene 97 almost at the end of the movie, and then in the afternoon you're going to shoot scenes 6 and 12 from the beginning of the movie, and you got to clean them up, and the actors have to go back to that stage, and so he just said, we're shooting this movie in chronological order, which made it so much easier for all the departments in terms of breaking down. So we knew exactly on this day we were going from stage 5 to stage 6 in makeup, and hair knew that, and costume knew that, and props knew that, and the actors knew that, right? So they knew where they were in their exhaustion and all that. And also, like I was saying, Francis and his team are just so incredibly gifted at filmmaking, and it was one of the best experiences I've ever had because there was no chaos. There was no Hell's Kitchen. And if there was something that faltered, like in the makeup trailer or whatever, they knew that we weren't sitting back there with our feet up. They knew we were working hard. And if they had to wait 5 or 10 minutes, they knew that it's not because we were screwing around. It's because, we needed that extra 5 or 10 minutes. Totally different experience from a lot of the other shows I've done that are Hell's Kitchen. Yeah.
All hands on deck. Here we go.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, it's a lot of that has to do with the kind of project it is, how much money you have, how much prep you have,
It's always manpower and money, right? Those are the 2 things that could slow it up, speed it up.
Exactly. Yeah. So if just having the things that are most important when you're going into a movie, no matter what it is, just really great communication, hoping that the schedule works for all the departments, and trying to foresee any complications that might arise in advance and try and figure it out.
That's perfect. And also, like, Doug, we have like over a century of cinema at this point. And we have so many examples throughout the the decades, Lon Chaney and these guys are pioneers. In your opinion, especially being a connoisseur of this knowledge from all these masters, what makes a good makeup stand the test of time so well that people today, like yourself, are applying those exact same concepts and principles?
I think that, especially, you referenced Lon Chaney, he was an actor as well as a brilliant makeup artist, that he really, no matter what the creature or character was, he still gave them a sense of humanity, right? Now,
Right.
most of that would come from the performance, but the makeups that he did, some of them were quite extreme, like Quasimodo from Hunchback of Notre Dame, but you still could see the pathos in the character, right? And same with Eric the Phantom of the Opera. The makeup on Frederick March's Mr. Hyde from Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. Again, you could still see the humanity in it. And what's really cool about that makeup is each time he changes, he gets more bestial, he gets more animal and stuff. And it's again one of those things that most people probably don't pick up on, but if you're a makeup fan,
Yeah.
it's another one of those things that is just really cool to see. The makeup Jack Pierce did on Boris Karloff is Frankenstein monster. Again,
Yeah.
you can still see the humanity in the creature. And the creature from the Black Lagoon, a guy in a suit, but for the 1950s, it's still the best
Oh,
crafted
hands
monster
down.
suit ever.
It's my favorite.
And it just works, right? It totally 100% works. So, and even creatures like the Predator that Stan Winston did, it was still humanoid in its form, which made it relatable to us, right? And also, sorry, but it was just a great creature makeup, and it was practical, and you feel like you could touch it, and makes it astounding and incredible, like the mandibles working and
Oh,
stuff. It was just
it was so
amazing.
good.
So to
So good.
me, creating characters, even when they're ones like that, is still putting in, even though maybe not humanity is the right word, but there's still something that is realistic about them, even if it's a fantastical creature. And that's why people like Dick Smith were so good at doing things like that, because the reference that he used was stuff that was in nature, right?
Yes. Yeah, it
And
really
so
exists.
it really exists, which makes the creature feel like it could really exist.
That's a great take. And this is perhaps the hardest question I have for you here. I'm going to have you narrow it down. That's the hard part. Uh,
Okay.
your top four makeup artists for film and television. I can have you pull from that influence you the most, where it just pops out
Oh,
for you.
well, that's easy.
Oh, okay, good.
That influenced me the most.
Yeah.
My top four. I was born in the mid 1960s, so I was born in 1966. So the early 70s. I was starting to watch TV, and I had much older brothers, so I was watching the stuff that they were watching, which I shouldn't have been. But anyway, I was exposed to all those great monsters like Frankenstein and Dracula and all that. By the time I was 8, 9, 10, I was reading Famous Monsters of Filmland and Starlog and Cinefantastique, which is a great magazine that's no longer around. All of those things introduced me to great movies like 2001: A Space Odyssey. But I also watched Doctor Strangelove. And the reason why I watched Doctor Strangelove was because, and this is like I'm 10, when it was on TV, I used to go through the back of the TV guide that we get in the paper, see what movies were on this week to see which ones had cool makeups in them. And I knew that the man who did 2001: A Space Odyssey, Stuart Freeborn, who did the apes,
Oh
but he
yes.
also did the age makeup on Keir Dullea. He had done Doctor Strangelove, and he turned Peter Sellers into 3 different
You're right.
characters in the movie. And so I watched it. I was 10 years old, and I just was fascinated that, that he could do this. So Stuart Freeborn was a huge impact on a young kid who was really interested in this. And Stuart Freeborn, so impactful in my life that my son is named Stuart.
Really?
Yeah. Um,
Wow.
and of course, Dick Smith, I started reading
Yes.
about him in Starlog magazine back around 1977, and I'd already seen Little Big Man, so Dick Smith, and The Exorcist and all of that. John Chambers was a huge influence, who did the original Planet of the Apes and The Island of Dr. Moreau, which I'm a huge fan of. And I think I have The Outer Limits on right now on my
Okay.
TV because there's a lot of creatures that he did for that show. And Rick Baker, of course, because American Werewolf in London.
Oh
I'm a
my
huge
goodness.
apes freak, so anything that Rick did with apes, But those are the top four that really inspired me to do this.
And if I remember correctly, I like for me, I always like to tell people when they come on, what inspired me was just cinema. I was about one and a half. I remember my parents had a movie on TV, and I'm playing on the floor. Barely can put a thought together, right? And it just
Yeah.
kept catching my attention. And it's Raiders of the Lost Ark, from the
Oh yeah.
stone, the switching of the statue, the stone ball. Fast forward,
Yeah.
right? I think by the time they got to Tibet, where Marion's doing the shots and stuff, I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know what this is, but it's special. It ignited my imagination. So, if I remember correctly, that moment for you was that Planet of the Apes.
That was. I mean, I already love movies, and I'd seen like Dracula and Frankenstein, but in 1973, when they first showed it on TV, and I was 7, my whole family, I think I've told this before, we congregated in the basement and watched it. And I didn't know what the hell this was. And then I watched it, and then that was it. I was 7, and I was utterly fascinated by makeup and the fact that those were actors in this makeup, and I couldn't understand how it worked. And that was, yeah, that was it. And I'm still to this day a huge Planet of the Apes fan, and I still think those makeups hold up
Oh,
because
yeah.
they're still great characters and they're acted by amazing actors. So it translates, yeah, incredibly well still to me.
To this day. And when you got
Yeah.
into this, going to the back of the TV guide and looking at who made what makeup, and maybe kind of take us real quick on your origin story. Like, just you decide, hey, I'm doing this from your first makeup kit, and just like getting into that thing, and then maybe bring that to the moment where you're like, hey, you know what, this is going to be my career. I'm just doing this.
So when I saw Planet of the Apes '87, that was it. Of course, I was 7, so it was hard to figure out how they did that. When I was a little bit older, I went to the library and got out Corson's stage makeup book, which showed some things. It didn't show how to make an ape makeup, but it still started to teach me. So by age 10 or 11, I had an old fishing tackle box, and I took all that crap out of it. And my dad and my brothers were extremely creative and artistic. And so for a few years, when I got into like 10, 11, we would do makeup for Halloween, and my brothers would go to the local theater stage makeup place in town. And so we started to get a collection of makeup. And so I just started to put it in this tackle box. About age 10 was when I first had a real makeup kit, and would just mess around, like I've told you before, doing stuff on my face, and just never stopped doing it. I remember I was 18. My dad was out of town, and my mom took one of my brothers and I out for dinner. I think she was asking us what we wanted to do, or maybe it was me, because my brother was 24, and I think he knew what he wanted to do, or was doing it. Maybe, I can't remember. But she asked me what I wanted to do, and that was the first time I audibly said I want to be a makeup artist for the movies. Which, I was living in Winnipeg, Manitoba, in Canada. We didn't make movies here. The only place that I knew of that they made movies was Hollywood. So who the hell knew how I was going to get there? But that was the first time that I really had decided. Yeah.
And then from there, it's just self-taught and application, and just
Yeah,
keep working
I
at it.
went to university. Yeah, but I was still messing around in the basement doing it. And by the time I was 21, I had terrible grades because I was not, focusing on school at all because there was nothing there for me. And that's when I told my parents I wanted to quit university, and I showed them this article on Dick Smith, and he talked about his course. And I said, I would like to get some, keep doing this. I want to take some pictures and send these to him and see if he'll approve me to take his course. And my parents, I had the best parents in the whole world, and they said, okay, because our parents were like, if you really showed an interest in something, they would support you and help you. So I quit university. I got a job. I was already doing foam latex makeups and stuff by
Wow.
that time. So Halloween was coming up, so I created like 5 different makeups, Planet of the Apes and the Ron Perlman Beauty and the Beast look, zombie, made all the appliances, put them on my brother, me, my friends. My dad set up a little photography studio in the living room. He took pictures. I blew them up to 5x7, sent them to Dick Smith.
Wow.
I got a letter back within 2 weeks.
What
Said,
was that
"Oh, I
like?
think I got." Oh man, I had seen his because I used to examine Dick Smith stuff in magazines and books with a magnifying glass, and I had seen what his handwriting looked like. So when this letter came and it was kind of like thick and all that, I was like, "Holy shit, this is from Dick Smith!" And it was an acceptance into his course.
Wow.
That was when I really felt for the first time like I was a makeup artist, and I still refer to it to this day. There's things that I'll get asked to do for movies, and I'll think about, oh, I need to make really easily cuttable flesh. And Dick Smith did that for that movie, The Sentinel, and I know there's a recipe for it in his course, and I'll go and I'll look it up, and I'll take that recipe and multiply it by 10 because I need to make a ton or whatever. So it's still relevant to this day.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. That's amazing. A lot of it's a matter whether it's college or self-taught or courses or whatever. And nowadays we have online courses and stuff. It's a matter of like get to work. And
Exactly.
it's gonna suck, and then the next one's gonna suck, and then next thing you know,
Yeah.
it's getting better. So can you kind of back that up for people passionate about this, but maybe feel they're in the fork in the road?
And I tell them exactly what you just said, that the first, 2 dozen things you do are going to suck. Unless you're one of the few people that you're just born with God-given talent to sculpt or whatever. But so I took Dick Smith's course, but it's not like I'm sitting in a classroom and he's teaching you, right? It's basically a book. And he's not like, giving you lessons and you hand in homework, right? I took a 3-week makeup course in Vancouver, which was just basically it's basic beauty makeup and understanding the products and stuff. Those 2 things were my schooling. That was it. And pretty much, self-taught in terms of getting books and just working at it. School is good for a lot of people because they can't read something and extrapolate it and do it. Some people, and there's nothing wrong with that. The 2 problems that I see are people who I meet who are young, who want to do this, and they look at my shop, and I tell them about my career and whatnot, and I kind of give them an idea of how this stuff works, and I say, you don't need to spend any money. Go on YouTube. There's a million tutorial videos on how to do all this stuff. There is nothing nowadays stopping you from doing this. And there's places in town where you can buy these products. You can get the free information from YouTube on how to do this. There's nothing stopping you. Go home and start doing it now. And they don't. I'd say 99% of the young people that I meet don't do it because it's kind of like some of the people that I've met who are in the industry who went to makeup school, and they kind of thought, oh, maybe I'd like to be a makeup artist, and they go to school and they somehow might get in the industry, right? The problem that I have with schooling is not so much the schooling, but the people that they're instructing. They need to make them aware that even though we're showing you how to do a bald cap or lay a beard or sculpt a prosthetic nose, there's more than one way to do this. And if you do this once, don't think that you're an expert at it because you have to do it 10, 20, 30 times to be a real pro at it. So I will meet young people who I say, yeah, you can go to school or you can go on YouTube, and they don't do anything because I don't know, because it's too hard. If you really want to do something and you're willing then to bust your ass and do it, and it's hard, and do it and do it and do it till you get good at it, it's because you have passion and you want to succeed at it, right?
Right. Get the
And one of the
reps in.
problems I have with schools are that people will do something once and then they think that they're masters at it. And I run into this with people that I work with where, they've been doing this for 10 years and they went to school 12 years ago and they don't know how to do a bald cap or how to lay a beard. Now, I don't do that every day, but once a year, at least if I haven't done it, I'm going to practice, or I'll do a makeup, because you've seen my Instagram page. I'll do a makeup and I'll make sure that it's got a beard in it. Or I'll do something that I make sure has got beauty makeup in it or something, so that I'm always practicing this. Because what I do is a skill, like being a hockey player or a ballet dancer. And once you get in the NHL, you don't stop practicing.
Right.
You practice every day.
You stay
And
sharp.
a ballerina dances and practices every day. So I'm in here and I'm doing stuff like, I'm creating some age makeups for a friend's short. This is like an eye,
Oh, wow.
upper
Amazing.
eyelid with crow's feet and stuff.
Wow. The detail's amazing.
So thanks. So some actor couple friend of mine, they have written a short and they play old people, and they asked if I would help them. And I'm like, hell yeah, because I'm going to be practicing this more. There's no money involved, but I'll get some pictures from it that I can put on my website and put on my business Instagram, thing. And that's what it takes. And I find that a lot of people, even the ones that are in the industry, they don't treat this like it's a career.
Yes.
They treat it like it's a job, like they're working at McDonald's.
Right.
Whereas, and I know I'm an exception to the rule, but most makeup effects people are like me, that they do it all the time. They read about it all the time. They practice all the time because they want to be the best that they can be. So if young people, if you guys want to do this, then just start doing it. And the supplies, yeah, they're somewhat expensive, but most companies for silicone and things have small amounts that you can buy. And you don't need to create a giant alien head. Make a nose. If you can create a prosthetic nose that looks real, you can do anything. So don't think that you have to go and make mechanical eye bug man. Make a nose and see if you can make a nose and put that on somebody's face and have it pass for real. That's a skill. And the rest will come by just practicing. And when you can afford to buy more materials, make bigger things and make that alien or whatever. You have to be a little crazy about this. You have to have a passion for it. And you just have to do it.
That's words to live by. I absolutely love that. And, if anybody else needed to give themselves permission to do it, what better than what you just said right there? In closing here, is there anything, I know you have like Violent Night 2 coming up. Is there anything like you want to talk about as far as upcoming stuff?
Yeah, I have Violent Night 2 coming up, and 3 things. Violent Night 2 and 2 other things. One I built this puppet creature for. That was another emergency call that I got last November. Oh, and I just updated my website. So if anybody's interested in checking that out, I just updated it on the weekend. Okay, well, I didn't do it. My wife did it because I don't know how to do that stuff, but she does. Oh, I built some prosthetics for a limited TV series called American Hostage with John Hamm. So okay. I wasn't on set, but I built some prosthetic things for them. This other movie is called Ancestral Beasts, which I think probably comes out later this year. That's the creature thing that I built. And then I've had, because it was slow the beginning of this year, I've just been working on my own little projects. Like I said, every day I come in here and I do stuff. Even if it's for a couple hours, I'm always doing this trying to get better than I have or was the day before, because that's what it takes. But in the last week, I've gotten 3 scripts. So I was just reading one. I've done 2 budgets, and I'll probably do budget for this. And I have a meeting with this director next week. So this
Amazing.
one's like I can't say what it is, but it's a legacy kind of franchise.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll leave it
So,
open.
yeah.
If you don't mind
So,
asking, like, I just like, because I've written the script, lined the script,
yeah.
got shot lists out of that. As a makeup artist approaching that, the script itself, like, how are you approaching that? Notes, things like that. I'm sure you have side notes, maybe from like the director or art director or whatever. But like, how are you approaching that?
So the first time I read this, the first time I read a script, I don't look at the dialogue. I really just concentrate on the characters. And again, this depends on what I'm doing. So, for instance, the script that I was reading today, they just want me to do the makeup effects, some creature stuff and things like that. So I basically just read, get an understanding of the characters, but I just read the exposition. I don't really read the dialogue. I zoom through it really quickly. I just look at the stuff that they're interested in me doing. So I'll do that, and I go through and I just have like a legal pad, and
Okay.
I just make notes on all the stuff that I think that they'll want me to do. And I get, it's not like I'm reading it through half closed eyes. I'm zooming through it, but I'm getting a good understanding. Then I'll just kind of look at this and go, okay, so they want, I'm not saying this is what it is in this, but they want a guy here who gets something driven through his arm, like a spike or
Oh,
something. So then I'll go, okay, well, we could do it this way or this way. Like I could do it with a retractable thing, with an appliance, or a fake arm that you can drive something through. And I'll make those notes, and I'll go through all those things. And if it's something that I think could be a puppet or on an actor, or it could be an actor and digital or whatever, I just make little notes. Then I go back and I read the script again, because now I have a really good idea of the things that they want me to do, because now I've like had a real chance to ingest them. I go back and I read the script again, and it's become that much clearer to me. Like
gotcha.
I can kind of now see this more. Then I'll have a meeting with the director and sometimes producer. Sometimes they send me their breakdown of stuff, because I might miss something, or I might think,
Right.
oh, that. But most of the time we just go off of my notes, and I will ask them questions, and I will say, okay, so for this, do you see this as being like I read this, that this should be a digital thing, but do you think it should be a practical? Or I'll go, I'm thinking that this thing could be done this way, in a practical way, either by doing it on the actor da-da-da, or a fake arm da-da-da, or it could be a real thing, but it might be enhanced digitally, and
Right. And
and
it could
then
also like it save money or time, like that.
correct. Yeah. Yeah. Just
Yeah.
going back, I was going to bring up, because you talked about scheduling and
Oh yeah.
saving time and stuff. Sometimes when we're shooting effects, like let's say somebody gets a sliced throat, and we know it's the actor has other stuff to do that day, I will say, okay, let's shoot this thing first, because it takes longer to put the thing on the guy and all that. So let's do it first, and then it's fast to clean him up, and then you can have him for the rest of the day. And you don't have to wait for me to, take him away and put it on him and stuff. So that's just another thing in terms of communication when you're shooting things, going through the script. And you have all those meetings beforehand with the first AD and second AD and all that for scheduling. But
And that's
yeah,
interesting too. And I imagine at some point in the middle to later stage of all this collaboration, you're getting almost like sending a group of photos or a lookbook kind of thing, right?
yeah. Usually now, I find WhatsApp is really good, because the video images are way better than if you email it. They're really crisp and stuff. So I will see if they have a WhatsApp account, and I will shoot test video like we did on Normal with that director, Ben Wheatley. And we would just, like, we had to do a guy who gets decapitated. So we just quickly built like a rig, and we, did it on an actor. We did on one of the guys in the shop, but to show that you didn't need a whole fake body. We just needed the actor to put his head down like this, and then we had a neck and shoulders with a head on it. And we just did it really simply because that's what Ben wanted. And, the actor is in the background who's got the sword. It looks like he's cutting his head off, but he's so far ahead of the actor with the fake head that the sword doesn't even come close, but it gives the illusion, right? But we would shoot all these things and just send them to Ben, and he would go, "Oh, that's great," or "Can we do, have a bit of this or whatever?" So, and that's so helpful for directors, so that you have an even better idea of stuff that we're coming up with. And I'll invite directors, like I'll say, come out to the shop on Saturday and see this thing that we're building and how it's looking for you. Because even a picture is not as good as seeing something in person, right?
Yeah, you get a full sense of how it's the mechanism of it and the setup, and they can visually see cameras here, and that's amazing. And then kind of in closing here, you did mention the website. Just do a quick little commercial for yourself here.
So yes, I have a website for my business. It's characterillusions.com. You can go on there. It's just broken down in different categories of the kind of work that I do. Lots of pictures. There's some behind the scenes stuff, like lab things about how we build prosthetics or fake heads and things. And you can also subscribe because I'm really terrible at it, but I try to get out little things to subscribers if they're interested in what I'm doing and how maybe I did something on a show or whatever. So, please go check it out.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Methods of Fiction. To hear more insights from filmmaking and entertainment industry professionals, subscribe to our video podcast on YouTube. And if you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, be sure to follow us there as well. We look forward to having you join us again on the next episode.